if you're still using normal garden twine and string to tie up your vining plants in the garden, then let me show you this, because this will change how you tie up your garden forever. So this is what they use in the commercial greenhouses. You know, you have this string here and this metal thing, and this just makes it super easy to tie up your plants. I'm gonna show you how it works. So here we can take this cucumber, for example. It has been growing up the trellis, you know, like a normal string. But what's good about this is that you can easily just take the plant and move it further down the row once, you know, it reaches the roof. And what happens then is that you don't have to top the plants, you don't have to trellis them, you know, onto the roof and stuff like that. And you know, if you're not happy with how they are tied up, you know, where they are, then you can simply just, you know, change the direction or whatever you want to do, really. So, so the possibilities are endless with this, you know. You can, yeah, you can achieve some great results. So yes, as I said, these are very good when you don't have a very tall greenhouse, you know, when the plants don't really grow. You know, when the plants want more room to grow, but you don't really have that vertical space. So what happens, if we look closer here, come over, Harold, you can see how the plant is going here, and it is moving, you know, pretty diagonally. What happens is that, you know, yeah, as I said, once they reach the roof, you just move them further down the row. And it's very easy to do. You just turn it and you can get more string out. So if you want to do it here, like, you can do whatever you want to do. Now, so how I'm doing this right now is that I move the plants. I have 2 rows, as you can see. If you see here, I have 2 rows, one here and then one in the back. Now, once these plants move further down the row, they will turn here and go to the back row. So basically all of the plants are growing in a spiral, essentially. And this makes it so that they can continue to grow taller all the time without having to do all the stupid, you know, topping the plant and stuff like that. Because we want more growth. We want those extra flowers once they reach the height. Now what you have to do when you do this, especially with tomatoes, but probably this is probably true for basically every plant, is you have to trim the lower leaves. So if you come closer, Harold, you can see how I've trimmed all of these lower leaves. Now, tomatoes want 18 to 20 leaves, you know, sun leaves, like this is one leaf, you can say. So then when you want to have 18 to 20 leaves, you want to trim the lower leaves, you know, you take the oldest leaves first, but because they can also carry diseases and stuff like that. And this just creates better airflow. Now, we can see for ourselves. Here we have the watermelon plants. Now these I just tied up the normal way because I didn't have any of these tomato hooks that they're called. I didn't have any of them, so I just used normal twine. Now what is going to happen when these reach the roof? I don't know what I'm going to do. But at least I keep them loose, so I can just move them if I want to. And I might top them as well, because you know, you can only get like, you know, 3 watermelons per plant. So they are not going to grow extremely long, because in my climate, they won't really have time to develop into tons of fruits per plant. And these are also the sugar baby variety. So they are smaller plants. No, they are smaller watermelons. Now you can buy these online. I've found them on a few sites. But I just got them from my friend, actually, who has a commercial tomato greenhouse. So he didn't use these, he has a newer version, so he gave them to me for free. So thanks to him. But you can find them online, as I said. Now with this way of tying up tomatoes and other plants, you really can only have a single leader on the plant. Well, you can have double leaders or triple leaders, you know, but then you need to have more of these tomato hooks per plant. But in my case, I have way too little space to do that. So I instead have I just do a single leader version, and I just take away every sucker. But something very, very weird happened. Very, very weird. I need to talk about this. My submersible heater that I had in the reservoir, for some reason it started kind of malfunctioning, and it started electrocuting the water that the plants were using. So I think that is the reason why many of the tomato tops, like the tops of the plants, are just kind of dead. They just got electrocuted to death, basically. So that's something you have to think about when buying things from AliExpress, I guess. So for some of the plants, you know, they have lost some, like here for example, this was completely burned. You can't really see because I trimmed it away. But here I'm keeping a sucker instead of the normal, you know, the first leader, because the first leader was electrocuted. So yeah, just beware of that. Buy nice or buy twice. I need to use that advice more for myself actually. I feel like. So when you tie the plants up, you put a little string here and you simply just rotate it like you would do with a normal string. And this is just a very effective way, you know. It's always under tension, it doesn't sag, and it stays on the plant. Very good. Now the extra thing you need to have is a string that you wanted to have in, you want to have it in tension. This is not very in tension, this is pretty loose, because that way it doesn't sag as much, you know, because look at this sags a lot. And you can use metal strings, but I didn't have that at the time, so I just used some plastic. So yeah, this works with every type of vining plant. You could, for example, you can use it for grapes. I just have a normal string here, but you can use it for grapes. And I have this plant. And for example, I have this plant, I forgot what it's called. It's some type of cucumber. Yes. And yeah, it's just very easy to move. You know, if you want to have it growing like some crazy thing, if you run out of space, you know, this is really trying to optimize space. That's kind of the point. And yeah, watermelon, you can use it whatever really. Yeah, so I think that this is a product that is really worth it to use because it makes it a lot easier to tie up your plants. And by the way, I want to give a shout out to Dutch Bucket Systems worldwide because they provide food for us. You know, in the Netherlands you have Dutch buckets. That's why they're called Dutch buckets, I just realized. But we have, you know, here we have a Dutch bucket system. I have many videos about this, so make sure to watch them as well. And we are, for those of you who don't know what hydroponic growing is, you essentially have the nutrients in the water, as you can see. Well, you can see the nutrients because they're soluble, but there's no nutrients in the substrate. So if you come closer here, Harold, this substrate has no nutrients. This is leca, clay pebbles, and the roots just live here and are fed with moisture all the time, which is perfect. And this creates, you know, pretty good aeration for the roots, and they just always have access to the water and the nutrients that they need, as long as you know, have the right nutrient solution in the water. And by the way, I recommend you to have a bigger reservoir than I have, because this reservoir, bro, I need to fill it like all the time. But what you can do is you have a bigger tank, like an IBC tote or something, that you have the nutrient solution and you mix in like a big size, and then you add water continually to the smaller reservoir, which is better for nutrient. You know, if the plants take more of one nutrient than another, then it is better to have constant rotation of the nutrient solution. So yeah, that was everything that I had to say today about these tomato hooks, or, you know, plant hooks, whatever they're called. And, you know, I find it very interesting to talk about commercial things and how you use them both commercially and in your home garden. So yeah, subscribe if you want to grow more food and if you want to grow as a person as well. Goodbye. Oh.